You might have heard that race doesn't exist. Or maybe you've heard that race is a biological quality that all human beings have. Maybe you've just looked around your college classes and thought, yeah, human differences can easily be explained by race. What is right and what is wrong? To answer this question, let's take a look at the history of human classification to begin understanding how and why we still classify ourselves. Think about other categories of human difference: gender, sexuality, culture, religion, and professions. Humans love to classify the world around them. And it actually is a useful way to condense and transfer information. However, when it comes to classifying human diversity, it becomes complicated. In fact, if we explore different cultures around the world, we start to see a common theme. The concept of us and them is a popular way to categorize the world into the familiar and unfamiliar. While specific terms and nuances may vary across cultures, the underlying idea of in-group and out-group seems to be a universal human experience. For example, the Yoruba ethnic group in Nigeria, West Africa, refer to foreigners using the term Oyinbu in reference to a person who is not perceived to be culturally Yoruba, or to people who are light-skinned. However, this perception does not influence how hierarchies are formed, based on an individual's lineage, ancestry, age, or titles. Meanwhile, early European colonizers used physical characteristics to describe the people they encountered. For example, Christopher Columbus wrote about the Native Americans, describing them as not unattractive, as many thought, and comparing their skin color and hair to people in Guinea. Europeans colonized most of the world, and their ideas continue to impact our world today. During the height of the transatlantic slave trade, Europeans needed to justify the mass violence they were committing, and a way to create societal buy-in to the practice of slavery. That could be done only by finding a way to deny the humanity of enslaved people. First religion, and then science, were used as justification for racial differences and a racial hierarchy. Colonizers, slave traders, scientists, and political elites at the time embraced the notion of physical differences to support racist ideas, like Africans are muscular and biologically stronger, so they are more suited to intensive physical labor. And, in contrast, Europeans are more intelligent and thus should be in charge of social institutions, based on the faulty scientific assertion that Caucasian people have bigger heads and thus bigger brains. These early ideas permeated many layers of societies, including science. In the 18th century, Linnaeus, father of taxonomy, stated that humans can be subdivided into 4 subspecies, associating a phenotype with a behavior, like Homo sapien africanus are lazy, Homo sapiens europaeus, smart, Asiatus, melancholic, and Americanus as ill-tempered. Later, others tried a variety of methods and explanations for races. The most interesting thing is that they never came to a consensus. While some categorize humans into 4 groups, there are studies with more than 20 classifications. And something important about science, the reproducibility of results. They never got the same results or data to prove a point. Some falsified the results. Others simply misinterpreted the data completely, biased by this racial idea, or came to very worrying conclusions. The beginning of an era of biological determinism, and later social Darwinism, rooted very racist ideas, such as eugenics, promoted the improvement of humanity through sterilization, extermination, and reproductive law policies. We are all complex beings, so complex that we cannot be grouped into a single box, neither by phenotype nor by genotype. Not all Black people have dark skin, just as blonde hair is not exclusive to Europeans. Both traits have a biological basis. However, the variation that exists between populations does not respect our notions of race, which change drastically between countries. What we do know is that there is no such thing as Black genetics, white disease, or pure race. Humans are so phenotypically variable, but genotypically we are very similar. This opens up questions about genetic ancestry testing. But that's a topic for another video. So why do we still talk about race? If race is not biological, why are there some clear differences among racially divided groups in a range of biological phenomena? The short answer? Race is socially constructed, but it does have material, social, and political consequences. Let's talk about 2 ways in which race has become real. First, while the idea of race is a social construct, it can have real biological effects. Racism and discrimination can lead to stress and other health problems that disproportionately affect certain racial groups. This can create a cycle in which biology seems to validate the idea of race, even though it is a social concept. For example, in healthcare, physicians still use measurements and tools that rely on biological understandings of race, and forget that individuals have complex existences shaped by so many influences on the world, like our environments, social and political context, and community, and cannot be reduced to a statistic when seeking healthcare treatment. Second, health studies have often focused on differences between racial groups. This can reinforce the idea that race is a biological reality, when it's more accurate to say that social factors, like racism and inequality, led to health disparities. This can shape how researchers look at health data and the conclusions they draw. In short, while race is not a biological fact, the social reality of race and racism can have very real biological consequences. For all of these reasons, we cannot be colorblind. Simply saying, "we are all human," does not erase centuries of oppression. Inequalities faced by different groups can lead to health outcomes, and that in itself cannot be ignored. This was a brief overview. If you want to learn more, check out the references below.